What was going on in the studio, though, was a real tug of war going down to Mexico to shoot Catch 22. But like a lot of movies, it just ran over. We would have disagreements, and the disagreements could be, real arguments that could stop.
Through their work, they produced some of the most exquisite harmonies in the annals of music. Behind the scenes, however, Simon and Garfunkel's relationship was falling apart due to the corrosive anger and creative warfare that was taking place. Having remained silent for several decades, Paul Simon, who is now 83 years old, has finally disclosed the heartbreaking truth about the reasons why their partnership was doomed from the point of origin. On the other hand, what he admits can surprise you more than you could have asked for. We need to take a look back at the accomplishments that Simon and Garfunkel accomplished together in order to comprehend the significance of what was lost. The first time Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel met was in 1953, while they were both attending primary school in Queens, New York. They had just turned 11 years old when they realized that their voices blended together in perfect harmony as they were performing in a school rendition of Alice in Wonderland. What began as a relationship between two children would later develop into one of the most successful musical partnerships in the history of the entertainment industry. At the middle of the 1960s, Simon and Garfunkel had elevated themselves from the status of young artists known as Tom and Jerry to that of folk rock superstars. Not only did their debut album, Sounds of Silence, which was released in 1966, propel them to the forefront of international renown, but it was also followed by masterpieces such as Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Time, as well as the legendary Bookends. During the 1970s, the duet achieved their greatest success with the song Bridge Over Troubled Water, which topped the charts for a total of 10 weeks and was awarded 6 Grammy Awards. The success they achieved was astounding. A total of more than 100 million recordings were sold all over the world. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he had songs that formed the soundtrack of an entire generation. A number of films, like The Sound of Silence, Mrs. Robinson, Scarborough Fair, and Bridge Over Troubled Water, continue to be considered timeless classics that continue to resound with audiences in the present day. In spite of this, Simon and Garfunkel startled everyone by announcing their breakup in 1970, when they were at the pinnacle of their success and standing on the shoulders of the entire globe. In 1968, when Bookends was being recorded, the first indications of potential problems began to emerge. The primary songwriter and creative power behind their music, Paul Simon, began to feel an increasing amount of frustration as a result of what he believed to be Art Garfunkel's lack of dedication to the collaboration. During the time when Simon was devoting his entirety to the process of writing and arranging their songs, Garfunkel was actively seeking opportunities to act. Notably, his part in the movie Catch 22, which was directed by Mike Nichols. Later on, Simon confessed that he had the impression that he was the one doing all of the heavy labor, while Garfunkel continued to bask in the spotlight. Was writing the songs, I was arranging them, and I was producing them, and Art would come in and perform his part, Simon revealed in interviews. I was also contributing to the production of the songs. There was a rising sense of bitterness between them as a result of this imbalance, which would poison their relationship for decades. By the time the Bridge Over Troubled Water sessions were over, the tension had reached an especially high level. Simon had composed the title piece with the intention of utilizing Garfunkel's soaring tenor voice, as he was aware that it would be an excellent fit for his partner's vocal range ability. On the other hand, he later confessed that he had mixed feelings about giving away what he fully anticipated would be their most successful song. Garfunkel's passionate performance was praised by audiences and critics, while Simon's creative talents were frequently neglected. The tremendous popularity of the song only served to amplify Simon's emotions of being overshadowed. The fundamental differences in their personalities and approaches to music were the most significant factor that led to the dissolution of their artistic relationship. As a perfectionist and control freak, Simon desired to have complete creative authority over the job that they were doing. Garfunkel's voice was the medium through which he brought his artistic vision to life, and he spent many hours developing sophisticated musical arrangements and poignant words for their songs. While this was going on, Garfunkel regarded himself as an equal collaborator who was entitled to voice his opinion on artistic matters. During the recording of Bridge Over Troubled Water, when Garfunkel recommended alterations to Simon's arrangements, this conflict reached its zenith and reached its apex. Later on, Simon regarded these instances as being quite irritating, as he had the impression that his artistic vision was being undermined by an individual who did not really contribute to the process of songwriting. Further complicating the situation was the fact that Garfunkel was becoming increasingly interested in acting. Simon experienced feelings of abandonment and resentment towards him as a result of his protracted absence during the filming of Catch 22. To accommodate Garfunkel's pursuit of what Simon considered to be a vanity project, Simon was forced to postpone recording sessions and promotional activities. He watched as their momentum slowed down. It was during this time that Simon's conviction that he was the only one who was fully committed to their musical partnership became more solidified. Another significant factor that contributed to the decline of their relationship was the presence of personal insecurities. Simon, who stood at a height of 5 feet and 3 inches, was intensely aware of how he appeared in comparison to Garfunkel, who was tall, blonde, and conventionally gorgeous. During interviews, he acknowledged that he felt like the ugly one in the duo. He believed that people were more drawn to Garfunkel's appearance and voice than they were to his own compositional abilities. Because of this uneasiness, which had been building up over the years, he eventually became increasingly resentful. In 1970, Garfunkel took a decision that Simon saw to be the ultimate act of treachery. This was the moment that led to the breaking point. Garfunkel committed to another film project, Carnal Knowledge, without consulting his spouse. This would force him to remove himself from the music industry for a period of several months. According to Simon, this was evidence that Garfunkel did not take their cooperation seriously and was more concerned in his acting career than in the musical legacy that they had created. After experiencing a moment of fury and frustration, Simon made the choice to discontinue the collaboration between him and Garfunkel unilaterally. After some time had passed, he revealed that he had announced the news to Garfunkel in a chilly manner, stating that he was moving forward as a solo artist. The way he handled the breakup was a reflection of the years of animosity that had collected over the course of the union, as well as his perception that he had been carrying it alone. Both men suffered a great deal as a result of the aftermath. In a later statement, Garfunkel revealed how he felt eviscerated by Simon's decision and the caustic manner in which it was given. It was his sincere belief that they were partners on an equal footing. As a result, she was taken aback when she learned the extent of Simon's disappointment. It was the breakup that sent him on the path to a depression that lasted for years and had a negative impact on his acting and music careers. In the meantime, Simon poured himself into his solo career with the intention of demonstrating that he could be successful without Garfunkel accompanying him. At the same time that his early solo albums, such as the critically praised Paul Simon and There Goes Rhymin' Simon, established his artistic independence, they also revealed the gap that Garfunkel's harmonies had left behind. Over the course of several decades, Simon and Garfunkel made multiple attempts to reconcile their differences. However, each of these attempts ultimately failed owing to the same fundamental problems that led to the dissolution of their initial collaboration. In 1975, when they got back together for a performance on Saturday Night Live, the situation was awkward and heated. Both of the men were obviously uncomfortable being in the same room together. With a concert in Central Park in 1981, which attracted more than 500,000 people and became one of the most viewed concerts in the history of television, the band's reunion was the most significant event that ever took place. The occurrence gave the impression that their magic was still intact, which resulted in the beginning of preparations for a new record and tour. During the recording sessions for what would eventually become Simon's album titled Hearts and Bones, however, the old patterns immediately made their presence known throughout the proceedings. It was later disclosed by Garfunkel that Simon had initially intended for the album to be a reunion endeavor between Simon and Garfunkel. Simon had even gone so far as to record Garfunkel's vocal parts on many tunes. To be sure, Simon came to the conclusion that removing Garfunkel's vocals from the record and releasing it to the public as a solo production was the best course of action regarding creative disagreements. The fact that Simon was still unable to share creative power, even after more than a decade of separation, was demonstrated by this treachery, which caused the split to be even more devastating than it had been before. The same pattern occurred again and again on their reunion tour in 2003 and 2004. While the tour was successful in terms of making over $100 million and selling out arenas all over the world, it was hampered by tensions behind the scenes and controversies with the audience. Garfunkel was irritated by Simon's influence over set lists and arrangements because he believed that he was being demoted to the role of behind-the-scenes vocalist for songs that he had helped make famous. In recent interviews, Paul Simon has grown astonishingly frank about his relationship with Art Garfunkel and his personal participation in the demise of their collaboration. This comes as Paul Simon is getting closer and closer to the end of his career. Finally, at the age of 83, Simon has admitted what many people have suspected all along. It was not merely a matter of artistic differences or priorities in their careers that led to their breakup. His deep-seated fears about their union, as well as his incapacity to relinquish control, were the subjects of this discussion. The truth is that I was threatened by the talent of Art, Simon acknowledged in a rare moment of emotion before the audience. Although his voice was the instrument that propelled our songs into the stratosphere, I was unable to bear the thought of not being the only necessary component. It was necessary for me to be irreplaceable. An artistic voice made me feel like I could be replaced. The fact that Simon treated Garfunkel in a manner that was frequently cruel and calculated was also admitted by Simon. He admitted to purposefully excluding Garfunkel from significant creative choices and to leveraging their commercial ties to maintain control over their artistic direction. He also admitted to using their friendship to his advantage. The confession that he made was that he was defending his ego at the expense of something wonderful. Simon disclosed, perhaps most unexpectedly, that he has come to regret a significant number of the activities he has taken over the course of the decades. In spite of the fact that his solo career was highly successful, he admitted that it never quite managed to replicate the enchantment of their union. I demonstrated that I was capable of doing it on my own, but I never shown that it was superior, he admits. Ours was one of those collaborations that was more than the sum of its parts, and it was one of those partnerships. Despite the fact that both Simon and Garfunkel are entering their final years, their story continues to be one of the most heartbreaking what-ifs in the history of music. Recent statements made by Paul Simon indicate that he is finally coming to terms with the decisions he has made. He was a young artist who was insecure, and his acknowledgement of his failures and the consequence of those mistakes demonstrates his maturation. Garfunkel, who is now 82 years old, has maintained a more reserved demeanor in his public pronouncements, despite the fact that his friends have suggested that it may be too late to heal the damage. As a result of Simon's admissions, he has discovered some serenity. In light of the fact that decades of hurt and mistrust cannot be readily undone by late-life confessions, the chance of a final reconciliation continues to be extremely improbable. Unquestionably, the beauty of what they made together is something that cannot be taken away. New generations of listeners continue to be moved by songs such as Bridge Over Troubled Water, The Sound of Silence, and Scarborough Fair, which is evidence that their artistic cooperation transcended the emotional issues that they were experiencing each other. The music that they create is a demonstration of what can be accomplished when two talented individuals collaborate, even as their tale serves as a cautionary tale about how easily such enchantment can be broken. We appreciate you watching. You may view another video by clicking here, and you should also make sure to subscribe to our channel.